bad advice that I received so much early on was do not spend your money. I just didn't like the idea of treating cash as this scarcity. If I'm treating it that way, it is going to feel scarce. I ultimately did not take that advice and have found a lot of great success, I think, as a result.
For founders, the advice never ends, so discernment becomes a valuable skill. Think of this show as practice. I'm Lindsay Chepkema, and this is Actually I Can. Good conversations about bad advice. Let's get into it.
I'm Ted Harrison. I'm the CEO and founder of Neuemotion, and we are a 360 full service agency for B2B marketers.
Love it. As a B2B marketer, I see you. I'm excited to talk with you. But before we get into anything marketing related, I want to hear about the bad advice you received. So tell me, let me have it. What was the bad advice?
Yeah, the bad advice that I received so much early on was negotiate everything, ask for the friends and family discount, go to people to try to get, scrape every little thing together so that you're not spending any of your money. And as a bootstrap business, I was conflicted on all of that because I want to pay people what they're worth and all those types of things. But it was just like the paramount of what everyone was telling me, like, do not spend your money and find ways not to. And I ultimately did not take that advice and have found a lot of great success, I think, as a result.
Okay. All right. So that is good advice to dig into because it seems like good advice. Like, hey, be super frugal. Cash is everything. So let's start first with where that came from and when it started, right? So when did you start hearing that and who from?
I left Twitter about 2.5 years ago, a little over, and had already been kind of thinking about like building a business. I sat in the intersection of where agencies worked with all the platforms, and I thought there's got to be a way that we can get in here. There's like an angle in the marketplace, just being good people, really understanding how the platform dynamics work, and a number of other things. And so as I was kind of getting my feet under me after leaving Twitter, I started talking about building a business a little bit more publicly. And that's, as soon as you do that, everyone's ready to start handing out advice. And I think that it was interesting. And a lot of people who gave me that advice have had success with some of what, they're giving or the advice that they're giving me. And so, you want to listen, but it felt fundamentally different for me. And I'm not trying to say that I'm this like incredible good Samaritan that just giving away money or anything like that. This is probably killing any negotiation power I have. We have like multiple open roles right now. And so people are going to be like, wait, oh, this guy's just going to, give away the money. But I think that the spirit of that advice is good. But what I found is like in practice, what it was doing to me early on, because we started on a couple of projects with just like I'd throw it to a contractor, which is by necessity. I didn't have the cash to, as a bootstrap business to actually start hiring immediately. But I was looking to get that done pretty quickly because I just didn't like the idea of treating cash as this scarcity. And because I felt like that if I'm treating it that way, it is going to feel scarce. And so the more that I could think about like what's possible, like our first principle as a company is like operate out of the abundance of what's possible instead of the fear of what might happen. And I think that like ultimately led me to go like counter to the advice. I literally emailed a vendor yesterday and told them to charge me more. So like we actually followed that here. So yeah, so I think that's kind of the origin and then how it kind of came to life where I didn't follow it.
Yeah. So a ton of alignment with what it sounds like is, you said it's the first principle of the company. It sounds like it's a big value for you.
Yeah, my wife and I actually, and I have more credit to my wife on this. She's also a founder, and we kind of have a house rule for ourselves where friends and family pay full price or more, like to not trying to ask that of our friends, but because we've been asked so often for like, hey, can you do this? Can you do this favor? We're like, if we know the person, we want to invest in that person. Like, why are you as a friend of mine like being punished because we know each other and like we actually respect each other enough to be friends? And so whenever our friends are starting something or trying to like accomplish something, like we're like, no, we're going to pay full price or more. Like, where's the founders tier of like make us pay more?
Okay, so tell me, let's again go back to where the advice came from? Do there seem to be a theme of people, of types of people that has come from? Or do you think that it's kind of from everywhere and you're kind of the exception?
I have other people that I know that have started agencies and built companies. And again, they're successful. And I don't really, this makes it sound like they're stingy and I'm not.
Yeah.
I think that's not the reality. I think it's more they know the actual economics of the business, and so they're trying to be like, hey, this is like going to be a thing. And I think for me, I just like personally have a hard time living my life thinking about like the worst possible outcome all the time, because I find that if I do that in any areas that I do, I just end up inevitably trending that direction instead of what may be possible. And so I was listening to that from like other agency founders and people that were close to me. I also heard it from just like people who have been in business for a long time, and coaches and other people that I'm familiar with. And then obviously too, Lindsay, like the generic, like it's a pretty common piece of advice, like, save your money. This probably also sounds like we're just like throwing cash around, and that's not the reality. Like we have like very cheap desks here in our office. Like there are certain things that I'm like, I'll save the money on because it's like functional and it's fine. But when it comes to like the people and the work and like what you're investing in, like it has to be, we're working with enterprise customers. I can't be like trying to get by on just junior talent,
Mhm.
or a random contractor overseas. Like I've got to make sure that we're delivering at the quality that they're expecting.
On one hand, especially in agency, especially in services, but also in anything, right? Like also
Yeah.
in product. Anytime you're doing anything, you're putting your name on it. It's literally the stepstones of getting you to where you want to go. They've got to be solid foundation, right?
Yeah, it's just, I mean, I'm sure even in your own experience, there are times where I look back and I'm like I probably should have paid less for this or I could have done that. And there's always the what if. And I think that was one thing that I kind of realized early on is like, I'm going to have a lot of like, what if I had done, this just in the course of the business. And I think the one thing that for me that ultimately settled and why we approach things this way, it's why, we have lots of like we're at Ad Age Best Places to Work for this year, and I think a lot of that comes down to
Congratulations.
like, oh, thank you. And I think that has a lot to do with the way that genuinely the people feel like they're treated here, and
Mhm.
the fact that we're not like, if someone comes to the table and like is like, hey, I think I deserve a raise or whatever, like everything is seriously considered. Like no one's getting like, oh, like placated away. It is like an actual like, oh, let's have this conversation, and see what's possible. We don't always do that, but it's something that we want to make sure is like people are feeling valued.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm hearing a ton of alignment with your values. Speaking of value,
Yeah.
know your value, know your values. And so, like, how conscious are you as a founder that you are building this company so much in alignment with that value and with your values? Is that something you think about all the time, or are you like, I don't know, it's how I just do things?
I think I'm forced to think about it all the time, especially with our growth, because we consistently have to be like making decisions. I'm constantly making decisions day in and day out. And so there are times where it'd be like, oh, it'd be easier to make this decision, and not have to even spend the time working through a particular decision. But I've just found that it's become so ingrained, like company wide. Just a couple, weeks ago, we had this big sprint on a project coming up, and like a lot of our customers kind of having a lot of work happening at the same time. And in agency life, even when we're extending out to our contractor network, that's we believe pretty top tier. It still is like, okay, we got a lot that we need to do, and I need to kind of like get the team on board for some late nights and some weekend work. And what's interesting is because it's been such a normal part of what we do. We got the team together. I'm like, please expect, if you can't, you got pre-existing plans, totally understand. But if not, like expense your meals, you're going to get spot bonuses. We're going to get you taken care of. And I think what was interesting about that to me is I didn't even have to like name a number because it was all happening so fast, but the team knows, oh, I'm going to
Mhm.
like, this is going to like, whatever happens here will be worth it for my time. And like, I'll be
Yeah,
taken care of.
I'm taken care of. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
literally the words that I was just about to say. Is that they already knew that they were going to be taken care of, which is that's huge. And again, like I don't know how it sounds like you're being very intentional about it, but it also sounds like it's just such a part of who you are that it sounds like you wouldn't know how to build any other way, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be tough for me to try to build another way, which is probably also why maybe the VC. I'm glad it's bootstrapped because I'd probably have some different opinions if I
Yeah.
had some other people in my ear.
Yeah, that's true. That's absolutely true. So, okay, and you said we've kind of just glossed over this, but you came from Twitter, like you were a leader
Yeah,
at a very large company. So, how do you think that that has influenced now your life as a founder? I mean, Twitter is not bootstrapped, so
that's correct. Yeah,
um,
yeah.
it's a very large company. I'm sure that the budgets there are very different than the budgets that you have as founder. So, how is going from that to this, from that world to founder life? Um, how has that influenced how you're building today?
Yeah, I think there's so many things, Lindsay, that could go through here because I was at Twitter since I was 2017 to 2023, which means for a year I was actually at X with Elon and after post the acquisition. So I've seen a number of different ways to run a business like that. You could not get more starkly contrasted. And one thing I continue to come back to in my time at Twitter, first of all, like one thing that like is often missed is there's a period in that window where we actually, and it's very much a we collective, to your point, very large company, made Twitter profitable for the first time in that window of time. And then the economics changed, and plus there was a whole hiring sprint. We can get into that, what some of Jack Dorsey's decisions were at another point, but in time. But I do think that we, in that time period, had like a unique perspective on how to run a business and be good people. Like a little bit of it is always the rose-colored nostalgia that anyone has, like when you look back on a certain time period and work and like, oh, those people were the best. But I think there's this like, because of all that kind of transpired there is this like people have consistently, even I have the opportunity to work with a lot of them now and service them as customers and clients now. But the one constant refrain is like, oh, we did have really talented people there who actually like cared about the work and were good people. And I think in the midst of that, one thing that I'm like still very thankful for and grateful for is I really had the opportunity to kind of build a business inside of the company. So I got brought in initially just to like edit videos. I had left my agency like job that I was at before. I was coming in to like help on the back end on some things like for advertisers on the platform, and then quickly realized like this is like an internal business. Like we were, based on media spends, they were able to access me and my team eventually, and then even a whole org down the line. And I was very grateful that I was given the opportunity to do that. And I think I was, because I had access to what the revenue impact was, which is another thing that we try to do at Neuemotion is, sure, like our video producers probably do not care what our P&L is, but if they wanted to know, like I would tell them. Like, and we were pretty open about like how things operate and like what the revenue looks like and all of those types of things, because I do want to foster a culture of curiosity on the business side of things. Because I think even if your role is completely divorced from the business day to day, having a general understanding of it really does make a difference. And so I was fortunate to get that at Twitter. And it helped me, like, basically I built a business internally. It was like helping drive a ton of revenue, and then was able to take a lot of those principles into what we built here at Neuemotion.
Yeah, yeah, that's amazing. So, what are the values? Would you mind sharing them?
Yeah, so our 10, like we have a company Stratafesto, and so we have 10 of them. The first one we kind of talked about already, with operate out of abundance versus the fear of what might happen. And the goal of that one is to just really look at the opportunity and think about, hey, we're getting to do this big level like production. Like this is something we get to do versus like,
Hmm.
I've got to, like I have to do it. Like really starting to approach things that way. The second one, and this will probably be unsurprising, is like we have this through line of like help, help, help. Like that is like a key principle. And so even if someone comes to us and can't afford our services or whatever, we're still at least trying to like help. Like, hey, maybe go here. Like that is the core reaction we want to see. And then we incentivize, everyone's bonuses are tied to company performance. Everyone has the opportunity to get performance. And so by that way, we try to make everyone an owner, not in the literal sense, but like we're trying to like encourage that sense of ownership of what we do. Another thing is see something, do something. So if there's a problem, like fix it. And like if you fixed it wrong, you're actually not going to get in trouble because you tried to fix it. Does that make
Sure.
sense?
Yeah.
Like we'd rather have the action taken on it versus being like, well, it's not my thing to like work on or deal with. Like and I'd rather be like, oh, we didn't do that right, but you tried to fix it. You saw something and tried to step in and make a difference there. I think that's really important. Another thing is we really try not to say no. So even when a client comes to us, it's like, hey, can we do this too? And it's like, you want that tomorrow? That's the answer is not no. The answer is yes, but here's what it's going to end up having to look like. And really trying to force that action of like that bias towards yes. Another one is like ask dumb questions. We're in Lindsay, B2B marketing, the amount of acronyms and
Oh
random
my
things,
gosh.
especially when we're working with our customers who have their own sets of internal things, like it's okay to ask, what is that? Like,
And
what
new
are you
ones
talking
coming all the
about?
time now with AI. I mean, there's this whole new set that
Yes.
nobody knows what any of them mean.
Yeah, yeah. And we're all in the room nodding along, going, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But no, like ask the question, like what are you talking about? So because if you don't know what's being spoken or what's being talked about, then you can't even be smart. So ask it even if it feels dumb. And then another one is live outside of the intuitive fence. I think this one's like probably the one most stolen from more of like the Silicon Valley VC backed thing. It's not too much of first principles thinking, but it is genuinely like we can't accomplish things if we don't ask the questions. And so we're never going to reach our revenue goals if we didn't ask from the outset, how do we get to that amount? Like, how do we do this? And like really setting that, like the way that it's phrased is like, you can't make $1 million in a month if you never ask the question, how do I make $1 million in a month? And so like, how do you live outside of that intuitive fence? And then the last three, I think, are a big part of our culture. People aren't smarter than you; they're just more assertive. I think that's like something to just reflect back. Often, we work with strong-willed clients. We work with they're great people, but like we will be strong-willed, and I don't want our team to feel like, well, they know better because they're the client or because they're very senior. The whole point of that is to say like, oh, they've like learned where they can be assertive. So like, don't read it as they're smarter than you. Read it as like, okay, like how do I like assert myself back in a proper way? And then like the last two, I think are really good. Like fun is the fuel for your creativity. We are a creative agency ultimately. Like we make ads, we make decks and materials and designs and illustrations and all these types of things. And so we have it's a regular question that our managers ask, like, are you having fun? Like, if you're not having fun, we need to like address that because I don't think you're going to be good at what you're doing as a creative if there's not some level of fun. And to be clear, sometimes a deck, the day before it's due is not that fun. But like the overall thing should be like your overwhelming feeling should be that like I get to work on fun things. And then the last principle, this is like probably the most value aligned one that I have that truly never mistake Neuemotion for your family. Like we are not a family. You
Mm-hmm.
have a real one. They matter more than anything that's happening here. What's so interesting about that is I feel like we're closer as a group because we're so explicit about that. And like we've had that principle come to life multiple times over the life of, 2.5 years. And our growing number of employees, we've been like, there's been times where it's like, no, we got you. You got to go deal. You got to go do that. Like, we're
Yeah.
not your family. Like, we will figure this out. And I think that actually, like, it's been the most cited thing from like new employees about like one of the things they appreciate the most when they like read through like our onboarding materials.
Yeah. The number of times we see like, oh, we're family. It's a family feel. It's like, no, it's not. It's not the
No,
same. It's not the same.
it is not the same. We spend a
So
lot of time together, but we're not family.
we
Yeah.
are not family. Okay. So those principles, those values are awesome. They go against a lot of what we see in B2B tech and MarTech and B2B marketing. You said something earlier that you said, oh, of course, decisions by values, and I use them as a guide. Like, how do you use your values to make decisions? Like, you're a founder, you're bombarded with 1,000 decisions every day, sometimes every hour. How do these values actually show up when you're making tough decisions about serving a client or about making a hire or about team dynamics or dot dot dot? How do these show up? How do you actually use these to make decisions? What does that look like for you?
This is probably going to sound a little insane,
I'm
but
here for it.
yeah. So there's a couple things. One, I do think that some of it is like there because it's me. Like what I've done is I've given myself permission to be me. If that makes sense, like
It
with surrounding
100%
these.
does. And
So
it's easier
I
said
feel
than
like
done, by the way. Like that's simple, not easy.
yes. Like yeah, but like I think because of the way that we've structured this and like made it clear and I'm communicative of those things, it makes it easier to just like be who I like want to be. And then I think secondarily, this is the insane part. I like tee that up and then made something that wasn't insane. I really am a huge believer in writing, and I think I've benefited a ton with it with AI being introduced into our everyday work lives. And because of that, I have so much writing that I've done historically, so much that I've done even since AI has come in, and I've got like, a little agent that's like helps me gut check like what the decision is when things are tough. Like what would Ted actually decide here? Um,
Hmm.
and sometimes it tells me like, oh yeah, I'm like, yeah, you're right. Like that is the decision that we'd be best here. Whereas everyone else is using it for, I mean, I have it for productivity too, but like I do have like a little bit of a like, hey, like let's get a mirror for myself
Yeah.
in this.
That's based on you. You said, I mean,
Yes.
it's your own actual writing over years. And it's a nice mirror. And I actually like to use AI the same way. Like, hey, this doesn't, this doesn't sound like you. Like, this doesn't seem like a thing that you would do. It seems like you would do X, Y, and Z. So,
Yes. Yeah.
it helps you, uh, cross check your values
Yeah.
and who you
And it
say you
makes
are.
sure I have someone in my ear when I don't technically have anyone to report to.
Hmm. Yeah, because being a founder is very lonely, and being able to share and not share things, but you
Yeah.
can share and kind of cross reference there. That's very interesting. So,
Yeah.
okay. So going back to the advice of, hey, money is scarce, save it, spend it as frugally as possible. Um, how do you discern? Like, what does discernment look like? Because there is no shortage of bad investments and people who are
Yes.
looking to, um, overcharge or to kind of scam you or take you for a ride or even just like overpromise and underdeliver. So you do, as you've mentioned, you do need to be a good steward of the cash that you have.
Yes. 100%.
But also you want to be generous and you want to pay people what they're worth. What does that discernment look like? How do your values come into play? Like, what do those decisions actually look like for you?
Yeah. I think that so that's a very good question, Lindsay. It's like because it sounds like I've kind of mentioned this a couple of times. It sounds like I'm this like benevolent, like whatever. The truth is it's really like aligning on. It's an alignment with even how I manage like my personal finances. In that, in areas of things that like I just don't care about, I like don't spend money. Even though like maybe I could spend the money. Like I'm fine to not do that. But in the areas that I really care or that really matter, I'm going to like be fine with it. Like I love going out to eat. And so I'm gonna get the appetizer, I'm gonna get the dessert. We're gonna try everything on like as much as we can on the menu. Um and but like I'm not at the same time, like you're not gonna find me with like a huge wardrobe. Like it just like I'm not that into to clothes. And so I think a lot of that comes back to even how we approach things at Neuemotion is like, I want to make sure we're getting the right, like the people are the most important thing. That's where our biggest investment is. Obviously, it's a services business, so that makes a ton of sense. But on stuff like this office that I'm in, I'm like, we've got like, it's very bare bones and very minimum. It's more like a storage facility for all of our camera equipment and stuff like that. Like I've got a bunch of awards behind me. I don't even have a shelf up for them, and like I probably should, it probably would help like liven things up a little bit, but it's not even because we just don't do it. It's because it's just not as much of a priority for me
Sure.
as much as the other things that we're able to invest in. And so I just think that like the too often, whenever you look at it through the lens of like save the cash or like do it, that everyone just like blank check does that a blanket across the board, and that like leads to like a pretty it just feels restrictive and it's not helpful for like building. And I think when you really look at businesses across, especially businesses like ours, but like even big venture backed companies like across the country, I think, or really the globe, there's this like perception that you know, that we have to create perception all the time, but like in a number of different directions. We got to make it look like we're spending money, but not be spending it. And like, there's just like so much like intertwined stuff like that. And as soon as you just kind of release and go, I want to know, I know that this is where we should spend money, and this is where we can be like, we're not going to invest a ton of money.
Mhm.
I think that all the games people play in that arena are what really hold them back from focusing on what building actually looks like.
Yeah. Okay. So we've talked about the bad advice you received. How about some good advice you can give? What would you tell your fellow founders?
The best piece of advice I can give, and we kind of touched on this, is like make sure you craft your values as a company in a way that feels natural for your operation. It's so much harder to feel like, oh, like I know that I should be doing this because this is what the business, like an MBA track told me to do, or what, a Harvard Business School like course I took was like, oh, this is the way to go. But the reality is like if you are butting up like personally as a founder against whatever your own company's principles are, and you feel like you're having to unnaturally be yourself in those environments, it just is, you're basically have set up an entire business with like automatic friction. And like the last thing you need when you're trying to build a business is a bunch of friction.
You have enough. There's enough already.
Yeah,
You
like
don't need to
it, like
create more.
you don't need to create it for yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. Well, Ted, thank you so much for sharing. What a cool business you're building, and congrats on growing it and bootstrapping it, and just the success you've had in creating something so in alignment with you and who you are. So I'm glad that you were here and that you shared it.
Thanks, Lindsay. I'm looking forward to all of our candidates being like, all right, let's negotiate up.
Yeah. Sorry about that, but yeah, good luck. So
No,
all
all
right.
good. All right.
Thanks, Ted.
Thanks.
Thanks for joining me for Actually I Can. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube so you never miss an episode. And look for me over on Substack, where I write for founders every week and actually go a lot deeper on some of these conversations to give you more information about how it all aligns to the Brave framework and the founder's journey. Remember, discernment is a valuable skill. Think of this show as practice. Go do something brave today. Thanks for joining me on Actually I Can. We'll see you next time.